Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode of Community Curations. I am your host, the Gothic Storyteller, and our special guest for today is none other than MYPHT. MYPHT, how you
Hi,
doing, buddy?
everybody. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
I had no clue if I really want to sit there and bring out all your nicknames, and it's like Miftila.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
like
talking about it. Joft and Miftua and Mift and whatever else they decide. I'm easy.
right and everything. Folks, I've been looking forward to this. We had to reschedule this because life happened and such, but I am happy to get MYPHT on here. I've been looking forward to this, and there's a sense of victory when I can get a person with a very busy schedule on this show, because when I told myself, hey, I was able to get Layla on here, I can get anyone on here now. 'Cause Layla's pretty
Yeah,
busy.
yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
but we're gonna get right into this interview with MYPHT. Just introduce yourself to the community. Who are you?
Will do. Will do. Will do. So I'm Mift. I'm also Josh, if that suits you. I am a streamer on Twitch. I have been doing so for now affiliate for about a year and streaming altogether for just a couple months more, maybe a year and a half, give or take. But I started doing it. I started streaming to kind of re-engage with the internet and re-engage with the things that I love. Find people of like minds. Maybe ham it up a little bit, but also it had been a while since I really got to spend time in the gaming industry and talk about all this. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd, and I really do. I feel nurtured and I feel good when I'm surrounded by people who like to talk about the same stuff. So it was a no-brainer. I had been watching Twitch streamers for years and years and years, and I just always thought like, I would love to do that. I would love to do that and just kind of hang and play games together and talk about stuff. So I've been doing that. Um, I am also a little bit of an artist and illustrator. So
I've seen your art.
I
You're an
always
artist. You are an
I
artist.
I appreciate it. I like to say that I'm in a season of learning. I always want to try and expand what I'm able to do, but every once in a while I'll take a commission for someone or illustrate something digitally or what have you. So I've been doing that kind of my whole life, and just being here, and I don't know. I think generally just trying to be good to people and do stuff I like. You know.
Mm-hmm. Uh, which do you prefer? Do you prefer like the traditional sense of doing art, or do you like doing digital art?
That's a super, super good question, actually. I grew up like I didn't have access to digital art growing up. So sketching, charcoal, a little bit of watercolor here and there, but mostly traditional art was what I had access to and where I found that I loved it and trying to hone my skills. But then as an adult, realized that if I was ever to get a job where maybe I'm pumping out work a little more often, or even if you said, if you ever wanted to get hired by somebody to do illustrative work, studio work, game work, anything really nowadays, the industry standard is digital. You go into an office, you sit in front of a tablet, and that's how you pump things out because of the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, I said to myself, like, I gotta figure this out. I gotta learn how to do this. So I did. I bought a tablet and taught myself Photoshop and have been just learning as much as I can. And that's been a couple years now that I've been doing that. Um, but every once in a while, every once in a while, I'll start like a big charcoal piece,
Oh.
and that takes me a couple months to do or something like that, and I'll sell that piece and just here and there's and teeter tottering back and forth between the two.
Is that your favorite medium to work with traditional? Is charcoal?
Charcoal, yeah, charcoal is it's messy, it's fun, it's very, believe it or not, a lot of people say that charcoal is because of the smudging and it's actually very forgiving. Charcoal's very forgiving. And it is. It's kind of fun, between the powders and the sticks and all of the charcoal pencils, your hands end up black. Um, and I like to kind of every once in a while I like to
Get dirty.
render something. Yeah, get dirty, but uh, get dirty, but also, rendering something that has a little bit more majesty to it is something that's really fun for me, you know.
I get that. I tried doing charcoal like back in high school because we used to do for like one thing. It's like, oh, you kind of like sketch it lightly out and then you charcoal it. I couldn't do that because almost like everyone in my class that was like super artistic, they could master that, and like I'm like looking over here and it just looked like I sneezed into a fireplace, and then bam, abstract. I could at least sit there and say I could do abstract stuff, but I could never do the fine stuff like a horse, or
Yeah.
because I don't know if you guys did rodeo art. I don't know if you know where you're at and everything. If that was like institutionalized in your
Not too much, I don't think.
not too much. Well, here in Texas, rodeo art, everyone did it. You learn to
I
draw
would
a
I would
horse.
imagine, yeah.
You learn to draw a horse. You learn to draw like a buggy carriage. I've done that. I think God every year in high school, and I still never
Yeah.
got better.
Yeah.
My horses
It
got
is.
worse.
It is. It's one of those things, you know, and someone will ask me, or I guess over time someone has said like, how do you get good at? How do you It's just time. You
Yeah,
just do it for a certain amount of time and things start to click.
it's like
Um
it's like going to the gym. It's a muscle that you have to constantly keep working
it's
and.
like, oh, you speak in my love language, babe.
So yeah, outside of streaming and art, you do love the gym, and you kind of
Yeah.
incorporate a little bit of that in your streams.
Yeah, well, in the lightest way, I just like being candid with the fact that you know, I'm passionate about, and I really like to hear when people are, let's say, putting effort into themselves and then seeing results. For a long time, I considered, and still to this day consider, starting to train professionally. But it's just, it's heartwarming to me. I think it's really important. Like outside of just being a gym bro, you know, and being the dude carrying around the jug of water and the protein and whatever, it is rewarding to speak those things into existence so that everyone can hear. Like, it doesn't have to be cringy.
Mm-hmm.
Just put some effort into yourself, sweat a little bit, and like maybe it takes all the way up until being done with your workout to feel good. But you really do. You really do go home or finish up your workout feeling better. You generate some dopamine. And then beyond any of those things, for me, nowadays realizing that I may just be a little bit neurospicy, or neurodivergent, or whatever the phrasing is nowadays, it keeps me tethered.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps me, you know, having that routine and being able to go lift, really keeps me tethered and gives me, let's say, meditation. Whereas I don't really sit down and try and have like meditation sessions.
Yeah.
Going in, putting on a forwards cap, just kind of zoning in and listening to music and lifting a little bit, and feeling what all of those feels are like is meditative for me, and I don't think I'm ever gonna let it go. You know?
I get that, and also too, for a gym bro, you're not all that toxic when it comes because like when I hear the term gym bro, it's the toxic guy in the gym.
I try to
You
fight the
you were
stigma.
like you were like you're like the dude, man. You
I do. I
abide.
try and fight the stigma. It doesn't need to be weird.
It's like he just goes to the gym, he does his workout, and the myth abides, man. Like that's just the best way to put it. You know, you're not a Walter where it's all like fucking market zero. No,
No,
you're in your zen,
no.
dude. You're in your
Yeah.
zen. You know.
Yeah, and it's balance to everything, you know, balance to everything, and just keep the things that you love close, you know.
Exactly. Before we jump into our movies, is there something very specific in streaming that you can take away that you've learned so far in your time as both a viewer and as a streamer?
Yeah, I mean, so much, so much. If I had to drill it down, let's say, coming from a previous life where I wasn't engaging in the internet as much, I didn't really have, I had social media, but really the only intent was to doom scroll. I didn't like anything. I didn't follow anybody. I didn't, you know, I had like family members on there. And because of what my previous life looked like, I didn't always get a chance to play games, and I didn't really get a chance to talk about these things. I was constantly on the go and focusing on other things. Um, So now having re-engaged with and feeling very much so feeling like a boomer, okay? But having re-engaged with and catching up on um, all of these pockets of the internet, all of these spaces, whether they be forums, streaming platforms, social media, I am blown away by the friendships, the community, the dopamine that is generated by just finding people where you can go, yeah, that is fucking rad. That is cool. That you like, you know what I mean? Like someone will post something and your brain goes, "Oh my gosh, somebody else likes that." Um so that, and then of course streaming, and I guess being someone who's focused on a positive space, you know. To
Mm-hmm.
this day, I think I'm still learning what my streaming voice is, but I think more than anything, the thing that goes down as a non-negotiable is creating a space for those people to come and nerd out,
Mm-hmm.
and just be good. So it's been nurturing. It's been really, really wild to experience, because in the past I just didn't have it. It just wasn't there. The block that the space that it just wasn't there. I dealt with and had friends in real life, and all of my interactions and transactions were with the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's just so much here to enjoy, you know?
That's very beautifully put and
That's my
everything.
spiel.
And you do have a wonderful community because of you, and I also do have to thank Layla because Layla brought me here. Yeah,
Yes.
we've done this stunt before where I've told Layla, it was like because of Joey I met Layla, and from there the universe was born. uh, and like through you I was able to meet Songbird, chat with Brittany Adams, a whole bunch of other wonderful people in your communities that they're all artists in their own right too. They do their own crafts, they work in film. And I think right next to Layla is like this was like the easiest community that like, oh my god, these people kind of get me because
Mm.
my thing is film and books and writing, and it's like we're all able to bring our different mediums of what brings us peace, how we express ourselves, and it actually meshes very very well without really too much any clash of cultures or whatever. Not none to my knowledge, but
No,
I've always had a great time in your Discord, your community, your streams. I've never really had a negative. Um,
I'm glad. I'm
yeah,
glad to hear it. But it's
yeah.
also, I think, really cool um, that we can all kind of stand on our own thing, and
Hmm.
there's room for everybody. I love the phrase "there's room for everybody," but it's also really cool that you get to express yourself in the way that you see fit, see comfortable. I know that you're an enthusiast, a connoisseur, a movie watcher, reviewer, lover, writer, even. And I know that we can go there, and that's I guess what I mean is, at all times of your day, instead of just doom scrolling and letting these things pass by, I love seeing something and go, oh, I gotta send this to Gothic. And that's community. Like that makes your days easier, makes your days, feel better. I don't know, something cute and I'll send it to Songbird. I'll see something made of chainmail and I'll send it to Brittany. And that's just so important to have in your life, So I just kind of try and keep those concepts handy,
It's
you know.
yeah. So moving on into our first film because there's an awful lot to talk about this one film, and I was able to revisit it because I haven't seen it since I was like a teenager. So this is like almost half my year away, and I get to bring back and oh god, I treasure you so much for having me watch this. But A Knight's Tale, and it's funny too because we talk about like the creativity of everyone in this community, and I could definitely see your community within this world.
Yeah.
You have your your Paul Bentley, so you have like your writers and your um, what is it, the guys with the gift of gab that are just able to just go out there and perform, and
Hmm.
the whole team that isn't really just a team but it's all a family all in itself. And I'm just like looking at this and I was like, fucking MYPHT made me feel emotions today. It's like I there were even moments that I cried and everything, like when Heath Ledger's character William got to go see his father again after all those
Yeah.
years. I was like, motherfucker made me cry. Fucking
Yep.
miffed.
It is. It is. A Knight's Tale is at one point I just decided to say that A Knight's Tale is in fact my favorite movie. And I'm glad that I did that because I think it was very telling of the person I am or am becoming or whatever. But I think it is my favorite movie of all time. It is, I think, a masterpiece that is underrated. Uh, and if I may, I think what does it, and I've been thinking about this ever since you asked me to come on. I think what does it is that it doesn't it's not eccentric. Like yes, we talked about just a moment ago, we talked about how it's a period piece, but it has David Bowie songs and Queen songs.
Mm-hmm.
So we can establish that the movie doesn't take itself too seriously. If very very few parts does it take itself very seriously, and when it does, it punches you right in the heart. But throughout the entire movie, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It gives you a very serious setting, a very
Mm-hmm.
serious time in history, but keeps things very light. And then beyond that, it's not eccentric. It's not a super drama. It's not too suspenseful. It's not. There's no twists and turns. It's not a psychological thrill. It's none of these things really, and I feel like it's really interesting. And maybe part of the reason why it's underrated is because, in order to categorize the type of movie it is, yeah, you could call it a rom com. You could call it a rom com. Um, it's just it's just a simple story of success and romance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time that I was watching it and the couple times that I watched it, it is the brand of I now know myself as an adult to be a romantic person. It's how I see things. It's how I see things. It's the way that I speak. It's the way that I interpret concepts, whatever. But it really helped me to define the brand of romantic that I am. It really is just a love letter to really like anybody who's ever been interested remotely in going to a Renaissance fair.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch the movie. Just watch the movie, and by the end of it, you haven't been taken on a train ride. You haven't been taken on a roller coaster. It isn't hard to digest. The credits roll, and you're just smiling.
Yeah, because it like immediately plays right as the main character gets the woman, defeats the bad guy, makes the Prince Edward like cheer, which to me, you got to be something special if you can make any form of royalty like cheer for you in a freaking like a duel in a jousting duel, and he grabs his freaking lady and gives her a big ass kiss. It's like that
Mm-hmm.
takes some talent to motivate a royal, and then bam, you're ACDC. You're playing,
Yeah, yeah. It had like the little touches of like Americana, the
yeah,
tiny little touches of Americana and like rock and roll, but then coupled with what I think to be the let's say the cinematography is not bad. It's not cheap either. It's not extravagant. It's not like out of this world, what am I trying to say, like Game of Thrones. It's not like over the top. But in some of those scenes where they're putting you at the festivals, at the fairs, at the gatherings, in the tents, um, sure, was maybe history a little bit different than the way that they depicted it? Of course.
yeah.
But it doesn't do a poor job of putting you in that space.
Mm-hmm.
People are dirty. People are hungry. People are eating slop. People are eating, meat. People are hung. There are knights and there are poor people. And it sends all of these values your way and then puts you there in that space. And then coupled with like an underdog story and like a super butterfly charged romance. It's just good. Oh, I
It's
just love that
it,
movie.
it's a modern day Rocky, but in the medieval times. And when you do mention the editing, like or like the shot compositions for
Mm-hmm.
this, it definitely knows when to give you your romance, when to give you the serious moments where this character is really going through something, and then you get a bit of an action film the moment you're on the jousting, field,
Oh my
and
gosh,
the
the way the splinters, the
yes.
wood. Oh,
I love that it's a nice little touch too that they add that even during the seriousness there is still comedy into it.
yeah.
So like when I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, it's when Heath Ledger's William is deciding to throw a game for his love because it's like I gotta
Mhm.
prove my love to Jocelyn,
Mhm.
and the blacksmith, which is practically one of the guys, even though she's a chick and everything, and he's getting his ass tore up with them javelins, and she was able to just catch one, and
Uh-huh.
like the
Yeah.
guys are just like, oh my god, and it's like she's such a badass, and
Yeah.
this is also like a film too that for its time it definitely did well for its female characters. Like yeah, Jocelyn was definitely like the very flowery, like I want romance and poetry and everything. But then when you look at the team's blacksmith, she knows when to be a woman and when to be a blacksmith and when to be both. And it's like
Right.
you see the different dichotomy of it, but it's not the movie's not saying one's wrong and one isn't. It's just that's how these characters are. Um,
Right, and it's even they almost convince you, again, maybe things were in truth different in history, but they almost convince you of this space. Here is this what must be a noble woman, who really doesn't have a whole lot to do through the day but like maybe float around and appear in places where she was told to appear. And then there's the worker, the woman who is trying to make a name for herself against all odds, is probably hungry, is probably working her nails to the bone or her fingers to the bone, um, but is also still has. And again, it always like this movie just continues to bring things back to a soft heart place.
mm-hmm.
She is passionate. She's caring. She's passionate. She's kind. She's soft. She's also a blacksmith.
So
You
don't fuck
know?
with her.
Yeah, right?
Because it even
I was
goes
also
it goes back to her introduction whenever they went to her to get the armor,
yeah.
and it's like all these guys are denying them. It's like no money, you're not gonna get nothing from me, and it's like you might as well go to the chick that makes horseshoes, and then they go to her and she's like, you ain't got no money, I don't sit there and do it, and they kind of bend the truth a little bit by sitting there saying, oh, the only thing you're good at is making horseshoes and that you're crap at armor, and she just takes that suit of armor and like just starts going to work at it,
Yep.
and it even shows to her it's like I didn't really have to go that like out there, but she built herself up to the point that she is a respectable blacksmith, and even goes
Right.
to the point of like, look, like you're gonna get your ass beat in this shitty ass armor that's super beat up, let me make you something. And even then they criticize her, oh, this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna work. It was like, you just shut up and put it on and test it.
Passionate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she knows what she's doing, but it's that time where the men second guess the women of like, well, what do you really know? And lo and behold, no one was able to kick his ass until
Mhm.
the villain had to play dirty, and
Yeah.
that's when her armor started really showing a weakness.
Right. There's her, and then I mean, admittedly, if I'm just being candid, I was always very, very smitten with Shannon Sossaman, who played Jocelyn. She was also in a similar era of movies. She was also in 40 Days and 40 Nights with Josh Hartnett.
Is that the
And
vampire movie?
she, no, no,
Oh, my bad.
it's kind of a bro movie. It's kind of a little bit of
Oh,
a bro
okay.
movie. But she just has this something about her that is it's just unique and not mainstream and I think she's absolutely gorgeous. I think she's a great actress. Uh, but she did really good there. I think Heath Ledger was I'm gonna go ahead and use the word adorable because that's really what his here's this character who wants to quote unquote change his stars. He wants to rise up through. He doesn't want to be but the entire time manages to act in a way that makes you feel like he's all at the same time lost, confused, scared, and kind of just like making decisions by the seat of his pants but also like following his heart. Like, what do I want? How do I navigate all of this? Because they're breaking the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a tense moment a lot of times because they're breaking the law. They could be killed, um, which he almost is. But it's this great balance of, you didn't bring me an edge lord. The lead in the movie is not an edge lord. He's not a knight in the sense that he's, swinging a sword and slaying the dragons. He's a knight in that he is chivalrous. He has a chivalrous heart. He has a kind heart and wants more of himself. He wants, and continues to strive through all of his like lostness and confusion to then rise up to be something more.
Yeah.
And I just think it's good. I think it's really good.
I think every character is written so well. I
Hmm.
don't think you could sit there and you can do it any better.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, I can't think of anything when you say that to me. Like, if anyone ever said, "What would you change about A Knight's Tale?" Not a single freaking thing. Not a second of the movie.
Yeah, because
Um,
everyone has their place, and it's so wonderfully written.
it's also the first place I ever saw Alan Tudyk. I hope I'm pronouncing his name
I
right.
think that's something. Yeah.
And Alan Tudyk to this day is making really, really great stuff. But Alan Tudyk was some of the comedy relief there, and I enjoyed that. And then you and I were talking about, maybe not a lot of people realize this. Maybe some people have watched the movie or remember seeing the movie and don't realize that it is the first story in the Canterbury Tales.
Yes.
Um,
I did not know it was the first one, but Paul Bentley's character is the author of the Canterbury
mhm,
Tales. And
mhm,
even though if you look at the dude, far too different looks. Like this dude had like a long beard. It was like almost like a Gandalf kind of look. And you look at Bettany, and Bettany just plays this fucking role with fucking bravada.
yeah.
Like it's Shakespeare. He is Shakespeare of this. Thank you so much for the raid, Bunny.
Hi, Raiders.
Welcome in, Raiders.
And I think maybe in my youth, maybe watching the movie, because they do. Remember, they introduce him and he says, "I'm Chaucer, I'm a writer, I'm whatever." I think maybe the first couple times I saw the movie, I wasn't aware, is because I was younger and maybe less worldly. But then I think it's really, really cool that the Canterbury Tales exists. And the very first story is called The Tale of the Night, I think it might be. It's a little bit different, The Tale of the Night.
To be honest, I've
Um,
never read the book, so
oh my gosh, no, I don't think I even could. I don't think I have the wherewithal to do so. I think it's all written in like, I don't know,
there's an audiobook somewhere where Sir Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart's probably reading it.
does the Canterbury Tales.
Yeah.
But it's the first, because essentially the Canterbury Tales was Geoffrey Chaucer is taking all these accounts of people roaming the countryside, people who are finding themselves at fires in the evening. They can't travel at night. They can't. It's dangerous to be out at night. So he's collecting all of the stories that are being told in these spaces when everyone's sitting down, and that was one of them, was the Knight's Tale. I don't think that in the original book it was such an underdog story. They definitely hammed it up for the movie.
Oh yeah.
But that's what they were doing, and I think that connection being that deep, they didn't have to do that. They could have just made it a movie about a knight who does well for himself.
Hmm.
And I think that makes it just so, I don't know. I guess like historical. I guess, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. There is one thing I would like to put the cap on this movie for, is it also feels like this is one of the last films to implement, to me, what I think an actual comedy is all about, where there is drama, there is romance, but it's not all dick, weed, and fart jokes every 5 fucking minutes.
Right.
Which there's an audience for that. But back then, when you looked at some really, really great comedies, I think you can label this is one of the classics. This is a classic
Mm-hmm.
in comedy because of how sparsely it puts it in there, but it doesn't lose its drama, and it made me think of like a lot of the Billy Wilder stuff, like Some Like It Hot. Like that's a
Mm-hmm.
really iconic comedy. Or
Yeah.
oh my god, I'm forgetting the name of it, but The Odd Couple.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah, yeah,
one that
yeah.
had a very good comedic stuff, but at the end, it was about one dude that was just struggling because he's like, I can't live with myself because my wife's divorced me, and I can't see the kids. What the hell am I gonna do? And meanwhile, this other dude's
Right.
like, I haven't seen my kid in a while. I'm paying freaking child support, never seen the kid, and I could care less about my ex-wife. And it's
Right.
watching those two underneath the same roof. One is chipping away at the other, and vice versa. And you love that drama, but you love the comedy that brings it. And I felt that with this, where all these guys, they're trying to survive together and they're trying to work together so that they can win these tournaments, make their money. Because Alan Tudyk, I think, wants a tavern, and I don't remember what the older brother, in a sense, almost like an older brother. I
He
don't
like wants
remember.
to go home. He just
Yeah,
wants to be rich enough to go home.
but because he sat there and he says by the end of the movie, before having to win this competition, he's like, I already have enough gold to go back home and here 100 times over. It's like
Hmm.
I've made my money. I can go retire, and do my own thing. And then the woman's like, I can open up my own blacksmith shop. They're set. They are
Yeah.
set.
What I think it is the brand of comedy is the dryness of comedy that you would find amongst a group of, just because the majority, but amongst a group of men who are facing adversity. They're all standing around, and I think of the very, very beginning. The knight dies. They're squires. The
Mm-hmm.
knight dies, and they're all like this. They're all standing there like this, and they're all trying to solve a problem. But throughout the whole movie, they're trying to solve a problem and still have the wherewithal to make funny little quips at each other.
Yeah.
And that's like friendship. That is the comedy and the humor in friendship. Instead of them, like you said, instead of them being punchlines about dicks and weed and farts and whatever and lowbrow, it's just the silliness that you might find amongst people trying to solve a problem,
Yeah.
you know? So,
And this could just be the quote unquote boomer in me, because I know a lot of people like to call me boomer when it's like I don't really like what they do modern day wise, and but like there's a recent film, I can't believe I'm forgetting it because my buddy Steven would knock the living shit out of me for forgetting it, but it had won an Oscar just recently, The Holdovers. That's
okay.
another really good one where it's one kid who doesn't want to really be there at the school and everything, and he wants to be with his father, but his father he can't be there. I won't really spoil it for you guys if you guys haven't seen it. But then
Yeah.
you have a professor. It's like, well, I don't really want you around here neither. I could be back in my apartment reading my books and working on my manuscript, but no, I gotta babysit your crappy ass and everything. And then in the middle you have this woman who had just lost her son in the war,
Right.
and she's like over here just trying to survive the holidays. And
Right.
those are all very serious drama things, but in between there you get that, the obnoxious kid that's like, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want because I know it drives you nuts, and you know what, like that's gonna make me feel better this holiday season. It's driving you insane. And then the other dude's like, I'm gonna try to get you kicked out of the school,
Right.
but
Right.
then they
And the
start
fact that there's
learning they have so much in common.
exactly, exactly, and that they can enjoy each. Yeah, like how do you make this situation? How do you make this? And it goes back to like the humor in grumpiness. You know,
Yeah.
it is here's this situation that none of us really want. How do we make this lighter and funnier? You know,
Yeah. It's I,
it's
I
so
want more
good.
comedies like that. Like I
It
love my
is.
Kevin Smith comedies. I love my Seth Rogen comedies. Those are good. But like, give me a comedy that I could feel like this, like What a Knight's Tale, or The Holdovers, or
A
The
Knight's
Odd
Tale was
Couple.
what is 2001 is A Knight's Tale came out, and I was about to say there's something really endearing about the movies that were coming out in the 2000s. It was the last era of maybe I can't speak to like all rom-coms nowadays, but I don't know. I just remember there being like such good bangers on TV in the middle of the days, things that were just thrown on that had already come out, had been out for a couple of years, and they would throw these movies out there and they're not loaded with CGI, they're not loaded with this eccentric writing that's supposed to like seep into the brain spaghettis of your mind. It's not about that. It's about just writing something that's enjoyable and
Mm-hmm.
funny. and gets you, like tugs at your heartstrings, and keeping it simple. I think nowadays things get a little bit too, sometimes a little bit too artistic, and fall short of it being moving just in itself,
Yeah.
just existing. Let it move you, and don't overcomplicate it. And I think A Knight's Tale does that.
And speaking about moving, we are going to move over to
Yes.
the underrated, because to be honest, I forgot this director even did this film. Harold Ramis's Multiplicity. Now, I tried to watch this before this episode, but internet was a struggle to let me watch this. I have never seen Multiplicity, but I am very much aware of Michael Keaton's comedy chops. I am aware of the director Harold Ramis's comedy chops. This is a guy that came from the National Lampoon days, and I think he co-wrote Caddyshack along with oh my god, because Michael Keaton's character is named after the co-owner of
Let me see. I'm
National
pulling it up now.
Lampoon.
So
It's
they've got him down for Ghostbusters, Groundhog Day, Knocked Up. Well, no, he's in Knocked Up. Let me
yeah,
see.
because that was like one of his final films before he passed away.
Yep. Oh my gosh, he wrote Stripes.
Yeah, and he co-starred in it
Whoa.
with Bill Murray. Like there was that
Whoa.
era of like late '70s going all the way into the '80s, and I don't know anyone that did not love a Harold Ramis, Bill
Oh
Murray.
my gosh, that is his co-star.
Yeah,
He's so young in Stripes. Oh my gosh. Okay, I didn't know. I didn't know.
but
Um,
I'm forgetting what Michael Keaton's character name is, but he is the actual co-owner of the National Lampoon comedy set, which that predated Saturday Night Live by a little bit, and pretty much Lauren Michaels took all of the original National Lampoon, and that's what became almost like the first cast of SNL, because you had your Dan Aykroyd, your Bill Murray, your Harold Ramis as a writer, because I don't think Harold really was a performer on Saturday Night Live, but he was more of a performer writer for National Lampoon. And this is the '90s, so at this time, I feel like most of those guys have already ran steam, because even Bill Murray was kind of not really the popular dude, and
right.
I think his last big hurrah in the '90s was doing Lost in Translation, and I think a lot of people didn't really understand that movie, not until
Right.
years later, and then he kind of got famous again when he did Garfield, but he also kind of regretted doing that as well. Um,
Right.
but why Multiplicity?
Um, Multiplicity was, again, going back to movies that don't have to be too complicated to do what they need to do. You and I had talked just before stream. Multiplicity was one of the first times I ever got to see Michael Keaton act in something that was a little bit lighter, but also not Batman and not Beetlejuice. I saw Multiplicity later in life as like a young adult, and it was really really nice and rewarding to see him just being, I don't want to say just being him, but um you and I had talked about when I saw him as Batman, I didn't know that that was Michael Keaton. I was too little. I was young and I didn't really connect or appreciate that that was Michael Keaton. Later to find out that he has his own really special form of acting that is funny and is rewarding and is nice, and Multiplicity was just really really fun. For those of you who don't know, or even Gothic, is long story short, he's having a hard time managing his life. He's having a hard time managing his life. He's got a wife, he's got kids, he's got a house, he's got projects that are unfinished, and he's a head contractor for like a big firm, right? So everybody wants a piece of him, and he's very stressed out. He meets up with a gentleman who offers to split him into more of himself. And unbeknownst to him, he thinks to himself, like, boy, this is going to be such a great tool. And what actually ends up happening is, as he's splitting himself, he's splitting parts of his personality. So later in the movie, to find out, he's in a predicament. Now we've met the conflict of the movie. How is he going to manage the fact that now there's multiple hymns running around with their own willpower, with their own fruition, except one of them is angry, the other one is I don't know, like kind of like
He's
goofy and slow.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and the other one is very kind and in touch with his feminine side. And so from a movie perspective, right? Like what a cool concept, fun, funny. But from an actor and movie perspective, it's not that's not easy to do. You might think that it's very simple. You might think the director tells him, "All right, I want you to act this way." But he also manages to make you feel like it's still the same character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It could be like if you told somebody act flamboyant, they may do so. And then you told somebody act really angry, they may also do so, but it's a completely different vibe.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton manages to give you multiple personalities of one character. And that's I think that's admirable as an actor. I think that that was actually really well done and leads to why I think it's underrated. I think he did great in this movie.
Mm-hmm. I did see the documentary behind it and like all of the technical achievements of what they had to do of like blocking out one camera so that it's all like okay,
Yeah.
you can only act in this small window here and do things, and then if he went over the line it's like, oh god, that was great, but you kind of fell a little bit over on the other side. And for
You're
him to
so
do that,
right.
I kind of feel like maybe he had to channel a little bit of Beetlejuice, because even you look at that, like there's so many. It's like all the wacky zaniness, but there's a difference when like it's him showing off and trying to look like a really good, like, hey, hire me, and then like the Juilliard scene where when you kind of, to me, that's when I finally heard him speak and I was like, oh, that is Michael Keaton.
Mhm.
And then say like towards the final act where he like he's trying to get shacked up with Winona Ryder, and he's trying to prevent everyone from, like, because he doesn't want to get sent back. It's like, no, I want to get married, and
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
there's a bit of that, and I think Michael takes that an extra notch where you have the child at heart persona, you have the closer to his emotions and his feminine side, and then you have like the bra kind of angry
Mhm.
dude, and then you
Mhm.
have him, which is everything all together, which makes him for who he is. And
Right.
uh
There's a scene in there and it's just good. I think the comedy was ahead of its time. There's a scene where he walks into the bathroom. All of his personalities are shaving for the day, or rather, I should say, all of his personalities are grooming themselves for the day. Um, so obviously, the bro guy is shaving. You know, he's doing the shaving and looking at his beard. The one that's a little bit more feminine is like patting himself down and has a towel around his hair. And then the childish side is has shaving cream on the mirror. He's looking at the mirror, has the shaving cream on the mirror, and is shaving away the shaving cream from his face on the mirror. And I just think it's hilarious. There's another part, and I think that's why I like it, is because you get to see Michael Keaton be very silly and very light. Um, he walks in, he walks in, and he goes to the one that's childish. He goes, hey, I got you something," and he turns around and he goes, "A chainsaw?" And I just think it's cute. It's just cute acting from Michael Keaton. So I definitely suggest it. I think it's a really nice, heartwarming movie.
I definitely gotta watch this now, even if I gotta try to go
Mhm.
buy it on YouTube. I gotta watch this movie and
Or I'll
everything.
yeah, or we'll plan it. We'll plan it and we'll watch it in someone's Discord for sure.
Yeah. um this one I definitely want to keep short because I don't really know too much about it, but there is a big question that popped in my mind. If
Mhm.
you were to separate, like clone yourself and have another
Mhm.
personality, what would, let's say, two of those personalities name be, and what would their personality type be? Like, what would be their main one?
Um, there's de- there's definitely and we talk about this on stream just because I'm not afraid to be at this point in my life, I'm not afraid to be candid with the breed that I am. And I don't know how to do it otherwise, right? Like I've even tried to kind of rein in this persona. I don't know. And it's just not even worth the time. There's definitely two sides of me. Like we said earlier, like I like going to the gym. I want to talk about lifting weights. Uh, I do like working on cars every once in a while, and like plumbing is exciting, and all of these different tropes and things like that, right? Like I do have a little bit of like dude bro, um, but I have never shied away from being interested in, loving, and like standing by. Like I do like suits of armor, and I do like romantic stuff, and I do like interior design, and I like, like world market. I could be in world market all day, and I can be sometimes a little bit like worldly and deep. And I think that's probably the two things that would spit out is like this person trying to own up to this like manly stigma, and then the other one that's like writing a sonnet, like or something like
So
that.
one personality is definitely William Thatcher.
Yeah, yeah, essentially,
And then the other one is
essentially,
Toxic Jim Bro.
yeah, yeah. It's the villain, and the hero, or however you want to look at it, but
Yeah, I like that and everything,
for sure.
especially because like the more you start like armor ballads, I was like William Thatcher. That's why he picked the Night Sale. He sees himself as William Thatcher. So
I
William
just
Thatcher, to be more
I
correct.
want to. Here's a shortened version. I really want to go to the gym for chest day because chest day. But I also am dying to go to a castle. I want to be in a castle, like
Oh
So
my
that's
god.
it. That's it.
I well, going to a castle is kind of like the next one that we're going to, with
Yeah.
the Hunchback of Notre Dame. By this we are talking the 1996, I believe.
Yeah. I
Uh,
have it. Let me see. Yep.
which yeah,
96.
which is an animated musical drama about a deformed bell ringer who must assert his independence from a vicious government minister in order to help his friend and a gypsy dancer. Um, this is definitely got to be like towards the end of the Disney Renaissance, I think. Like it wasn't the official end, but to me, in quality of film, this was probably like the last one. Uh,
Yeah.
why the Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Um, Hunchback is Hunchback, and I guess it really does piggyback into what we've been talking about. Is the I'll say this is the if I could be so bold, the soundtrack, the score, and the orchestration absolutely has me by the balls. Um, I grew up in a Catholic environment, so the church, the hymns, the Gothic stylings, what else? In the music itself, the minor tones and the organ chords is something that I was a part of my very very early childhood. So there's something there that's special. Uh, Beyond it just being like an extreme quality score. The voice actors are incredible. The I know that it doesn't. I know it's very very different from Victor Hugo's actual
Yeah.
Hunchback. Like, I know the story has been twisted to make this movie work, but the themes are still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Judge Claude Frollo is pretty gross, and they don't shy away from saying, even in this now vaulted Disney movie, they don't really like to forecast this one all over the place, right? Um, he's having a crisis of temptation, and there are a lot of themes here that deal with religion, law, moral, let's say moral, what am I trying to say? I guess just your morality,
Mm-hmm.
societal standards. There's a lot of things here that are just so good. But then I'll finish off with this. I'll finish the point with this. The Hunchback was one of the first times in my childhood. In fact, maybe the first time in my childhood that I realized in writing, in stories, or in romantic dramas, the hero doesn't always get what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
That was the very first time, because maybe let's say prior to that in my head, I had this, I don't know, Superman kind of esque hero depiction, the hero. And the Hunchback, he's deformed, he has been cooped up, he doesn't get the girl. loves her, cares for her, kind, considerate, throttles the gas pedal just the right way, doesn't get the girl, and isn't the knight in shining armor. He kills the bad guy, he stands up against adversity and kills the bad guy and deals with the pressures of society, but he doesn't win. And it's the first time in my life that I realized being a hero, being a good person with a big heart, doesn't always yield reward. And in fact, the reward is just the fact that you can finish off your day telling yourself that you are good for what you've done, that you don't need reward for it. That's just how you're built. Um, so it was just kind of groundbreaking for me. And I think I carried that all the way through my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself necessarily as a bell ringer or like a hunchback, but I think it is. It's romantic, the concept that a hero doesn't always win.
Yeah. I mean, like, but doesn't he kind of at least get his independence, though? He did free himself of Frollo, but he still
He
does stay
does.
in the. He stays at least in the church where he knows that that's his home, and he still has his gargoyle buddies that
Well,
occasionally
and it
play
could even be
poker.
said, yeah, it could even be said that he's then accepted by society. The way that they actually, let's say this particular
This
movie, maybe
version,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, he's then accepted by society and they celebrate him. So, yes. Um, but as far as like, let's say traditionally, I just thought it was groundbreaking that he's so entranced by this woman who the two of them have now established friendship, and he's just so like let's say just taken away by this person who he wants a life with. He's never experienced anything like her before, and in the end she gently touches his face and she chooses the knight,
mm-hmm.
who is kind of goofy and didn't really contribute an enormous amount. um and that's not how most Disney movies were written.
Yeah,
Our collection of VHSs were, you know what I mean? Do you see like what like the
yeah,
correlation
but
is? Like
because
Snow
when
White has the knight and
yeah,
Aurora has the knight, and
even like even when you go to Disney's dark period, at least the hero still won. The Black Cauldron, they vanquished the evil King Arthur, crowned and everything. The rescuers, they were able to save a child so that child could have a life and not
right,
be used as a tool and a pawn for some people that are looking for, jewelry, or someone that's trying to get an egg and kill the last living vestige of an animal, of an entire breed, and
right.
everything. And in this one, because you keep mentioning he didn't get the girl, but like he even has like a little song of, even if I can't have her as like a lover or something like that, I would still just be happy if we were just friends.
Right.
And
And I
and
think the movie teaches you some kind of like contentedness in good
like,
deeds
you
or
don't
something.
have to sit there and marry, fall in love, have kids with your friend or whatever. It can just stay friends.
Right.
Which I feel like probably
And I
most of
think
our generation missed that storyline.
missed the storyline, or maybe, and it very well could be that I'm overcomplicating a very simple trope.
Yeah.
But it's fun in your head to go, who's the hero figure in Sleeping Beauty? It's Prince Philip. Who's the hero figure in Snow White? It's the guy who comes and kisses her from the poison and then they ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
If you finish The Hunchback of Notre Dame and you have all of these feelings, fine. But then if you also challenge yourself to go, who's the hero in The Hunchback of Notre Dame? And it's Quasimodo, but it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
It's
It's not
more
the same
it's
story.
more tragedy than it is heroic and everything.
It's tragic, and it's my favorite word. It's romantic.
Yeah. But
You know,
you also kind of like look like that's like a lot of Shakespeare's plays, and even though this is Victor Hugo, it obviously feels like he took a lot of, because Macbeth doesn't end on a really happy note. Neither is
no,
Romeo and Juliet. Neither does Othello. Most of those are all tragedies and everything. And um, from what I remember in Victor Hugo's novel, is Quasi dies. He doesn't live.
yeah,
and everything. Like, he did do the self-sacrificing thing to stop Judge. You know, I want to.
The original is very dark.
Yeah, because it's
Very dark.
it's not just a man in power that is also struggling with his own religious his religious faults and his own temptations, but the dude is a pedophile because Esmeralda is like, I think, a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old in the original.
There's also the conflict of, I believe he is sworn to a life of celibacy, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that's, one of the other things that kind of stands out is it's the first time, and again, maybe this is one of the reasons why Disney doesn't, kind of hand this one out all over the place. The Hunchback of Notre Dame has an unseen character that you get to enjoy, and it's the church.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectations of, or at least the societal woes and the morality of what each one of these other characters is dealing with as it relates to, if not the church, the city, Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And there's now, and I think that maybe at the time Disney movies were a little bit more simple than that and didn't have these nuances, but to me that's so much fun. There's a song at the very beginning where, Judge Claude Frollo, he accidentally kills Quasi's mother, and she's laying on the steps, and part of the song is the archdeacon comes out, and he says, you can be whoever you want. You can say whatever you want. You can lie to everybody. You can build yourself up to this point of power. But the one thing that you can't challenge, that I know you, being a man of God, that you can't really do anything about, is the life that you have to live with the church, this gigantic cathedral looming over your life, and the guilt that you're going to feel because you killed this person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so deep.
And he thinks that, he's kind of saved himself in salvation because he's like, well, I'll just take care of the deformed baby. Mm-hmm. I will. And then, even then, when you start looking at the Esmeralda character, and he's getting all pissy, and he sings, which to me, I think is the best Disney song of the 90s. With, the Hellfire song, and like just how everything builds up. And the song is like
one of the best Disney.
It's like an incel anthem because he can't take responsibility for his own actions. All, like, if I can't have her, then no one will. And it's like, or you could just let her go.
Right.
You could do that. Like, why the fuck you gotta kill her? You only have two things in your mind: it's fuck her or kill her.
Well, and I think maybe the final climax of the movie where I don't think a lot of people realize what's actually happening is he pretty much says to burn down Paris, and they go around lighting, peasants and like suspected gypsy homes and all of this other stuff. He's lighting places on fire and probably killing other people. He's losing his mind.
Mm-hmm. It's no longer a discrimination against gypsy people, looking at them as lowbrow. It's like, no, I'll just burn Paris to the ground and start all over again.
Yep.
And it kind of also feels like at this point too, his character is all like, I don't care if God doesn't like what I'm doing, because at that point I think he's finally just threw his moral compass. What fractured when it was, he threw that one out the freaking window, and he's all like, not even God will challenge me in my pursuit.
Right.
And it's like, generally those are the best tragedies for a villain, because it's like, oh God, when you start really challenging a higher being, it doesn't really work out for you in the end. It's like, I guess this dude never read a book in his life. Because back then there were even stories of all like, if you challenge the higher power of anything, you're not gonna win,
No.
And that works for both sides, like both for good and for evil. If you challenge the higher power, you're just gonna lose that battle,
Agreed. I think one of the last, and then I think that's really, all that I can think of at the moment. I was always really, really excited about, there's a part in the movie where they go to what they call the Court of Miracles, which they essentially bring them to the band of gypsies or the mob or whatever they want to call it, I actually looked it up at one point. There was in Paris, there was a district that was called the Court of Miracles. And I know they sing this in the song, but I don't know if you always really like, I don't know if I digested it the same way as like later in my life looking it up and reading about it. There was a district that was a very, very poor district where a lot of the thieves and criminals resorted to staying because it was like low income or the slums or what have you. And they called it the Court of Miracles because all of a sudden the people that you saw panhandling on the streets in like the metropolitan areas or like by the churches,
Mm-hmm.
people who didn't have legs, people who couldn't see, they all were there at the end of the day and they could because they were scamming you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They called it the Court of Miracles because there in the Court of Miracles the blind can see and the lame can walk. And it's because there were so many thieves and like and scammers that would leave for the day to try and make their money and go back to their homes in the slums, which
Interesting.
I always thought was just
I
cool.
I gotta look that one up and everything. I did not even
Yeah.
know that. There is so much, and I kind of really wish that Disney went back into this. I know they do it with some of their films, but not all of them.
Right.
But just the amount of rich history in which that they can put in a world, and most of that history you won't see that in a first watch. This is just something you gotta like watch it over and over and over again just to freaking pick up those tiny little nuances.
Oh my gosh, I watch it with people. I tell them, "Look, go ahead watch it, finish it. I'll sit next to you if you want to, but go ahead and watch it." And then I go, "When you're ready for the second time, I'm going to pause the movie and I'm going to point out these things because there's just little moments of beauty scattered throughout the whole movie."
Now that's spoken like a true filmmaker.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I would do that with Nosferatu at school. It's like we had one viewing where we did it, and then someone wanted like the whole breakdown, and so like I like ended up like explaining like these certain key scenes, and told them it's all like Nosferatu for some of the feminists in the classroom. It's like is actually very pro woman, and
Yeah.
everything. I was like, because not a single man can stop it, but it took a woman to sacrifice her life, and you could look at that as crappy writing, but at the end of the damn day, the woman saved your asses. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
she
In
was,
something that was an early writing kind
yeah.
of.
Well, like also too, there's like there's so much to go like under the wire because like F.W. Murnau was like supposedly gay and everything,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
I've like most of my friends have like noticed like yeah, a lot of your favorite directors of that time frame are all gay. I was like I know, right? Like Murnau, James Whales, it's like they know how to make great films and make you feel and
Yeah.
everything. It's like they had to hide who they. Well, James did not hide anything. What the fuck, James, let the flag fly. He didn't care and everything. He made his movies. He made his mark. They weren't going to take that away from him. He knew that.
It's
Um,
very who was the writer? Now I can't think of it. Who wrote the picture of Dorian Gray?
Oscar Wilde. Yep. Even
Yes.
even
Yeah.
he, let that flag fly and
Yeah.
all the way to the point that he was incarcerated. And then once they let him go, and it's like you can't change me for who I am. It's
Right.
like he still lived that life regardless, and I don't really remember technically how he died. I don't think he really died penniless and alone or anything. I think he did have someone with him, um, but
I'd have to look it up and see.
like I definitely need to go jump into a lot of Oscar Wilde stuff. Like I love oh my god, what was it? The one where it's the house haunted by the headless spirit, and he's trying to scare these people out, and these kids are like so freaking terrible. Um, because I found out Patrick Stewart played the ghost. It's like the something ghost, or is it the Canterville ghost? Everything that was like another good one that I grew up watching. I didn't read the story until much later, but that's a very fun one. I think it's called the Canterville ghost or something.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, but that's another one. I've only read half of Dorian Gray.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to think what other material of Oscar Wilde's that I've actually read. Um, he's like one of the artists that I have an interest in, but I just never got around to actually reading all of his material. Now,
I did. I think at one point I attempted the picture of Dorian Gray, and I think it was just a slow start. That's all.
It's the same thing with Jekyll and Hyde. Also, too, it's the era. It's the era in which it's written, and so trying to read sometimes Yod English and sometimes the composition. It's like, what the fuck are you trying to say, dude? It's like
Jekyll and Hyde is one of my favorites, really.
I think like Jekyll and Hyde is like probably one of like the most like relatable stories I think for anyone. I don't care who you are. You can find always something of relation to that story. But folks, we are gonna wrap it up because we went a little bit over time. But you know what? It's fucking worth it because we had so much freaking time talking about this, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Especially when it kind of almost became history hour here.
Yeah.
But you know, to me, I love history. I love film, and I love it when they're brought together magically. Even if it's not accurate, like in A Knight's Tale, but still, you know, if it can move you, and have you walk away with something you've learned or just something awestruck to like tell your friends, like I think that movie's done its thing. Myth, where could the people find you?
So you can find me there on Twitch. It's just MYPHT, nothing else. You can also find me on Instagram, on Twix or Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. What else? What else? What else? I think you had said
You got any
some of the
events
things that
coming
are
up?
coming up. So I will be here. What will end up being in the month of November.
Mm-hmm.
Planning an affiliate anniversary stream, so that'll be a bunch of fun. Februaries we do kind of a gimmicky thing called Flashback Februaries, where we get to play games from our childhood and donate money to charity. But I think other than that, I'm just gonna try and enjoy the holidays and stuff.
All right. Thank you so much, Myth, again for being here. I graciously appreciate, and we're definitely gonna have to have back on to like look at more history and film stuff and
I would
everything
love
because
to.
I,
I
I
would
I
love
think I found my history buff friend and everything. It's like fuck yeah, because I know some people they're like, yeah, sure, we'll talk history. I talk it and it feels like I put them to sleep, and it's like, oh shit. It's like
No, I can definitely, if you get me going on something that I'm really passionate about, you can get me going for hours and hours. So, absolutely. I loved being here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for asking me. I can't wait to come back.